Hi, I'm Sophie.
Hi, I'm Paul. And we are
SP Film Viewers.
So here we are again for another anime session.
Woo!
And
Hopefully it's better than last time.
I've run the gauntlet and gone with one that's from the rental disc service. It's started up again. I've gone with a whole bunch of animes I haven't seen either to bring in. I thought, okay, let's see what it gives us. And Fates gave us Deer King, which is one of the films that I do remember seeing like advertised on the showcase, like, you know, like a limited run, a bit like Suzume or maybe even Boy and the Heron. I think like limited like screenings of the movie, but for whatever reason we didn't get around to seeing it. I think it was like July time in. We came over here in 2022, but the film listed as 2021.
Okay.
So obviously I think that when it came in Japan initially, and then eventually, as they do, it takes a while for them
to arrive here.
Yeah, because if they have to do the.
Surprised that you didn't drag me to that then.
Well, if it was the end of July, and we'd been away.
Might be your birthday, yeah.
Something. Or we tried to. I don't know. I can't remember what.
It's true.
What's going. But anyway, I'm gonna watch it now, and see if it's to us to offer.
If it were worth not paying for a cinema ticket or not. Is that what you're meaning?
It can be a bit hard sometimes, like with these modern animes, whether they can be a bit hit and miss as to what they offer, really. You know, if it's just retreading ground that's already been covered.
It's true. I feel like that's any film, though, isn't it?
You could say it that way, like a means of, well, how can they do it differently?
Yeah.
There's always appreciate when films have the ambition to try and shift gears and mix it up a bit. But well, apparently the film's 2 hours long.
Okay.
Which is assumed it was just an hour and a half.
Yeah, why is it so long?
But the synopsis reads as: the last survivor of a band of warriors is enslaved in a salt mine. Okay. One night, savage dogs attack and a mysterious disease wipes out everyone at the mine. Very broad, not like just a sum up, is it? Like it's literally almost explaining.
Telling you the whole film.
Yeah. The warrior escapes with the little girl. Well,
I don't need to be worried about any of this now, do I, when I go in?
Yeah, while a gifted physician looks for a cure.
Is that it?
That's what Google synopsis reads as.
Jesus, tell me the whole film. Why not Google?
And I feel like it looks like it's the same for the IMDb anyway. So it's like, okay, it's not. That doesn't, you know, it can't surmise it without explaining everything. I don't know. That's a bit worrying.
Well, we'll just have to see. We already know now that there's a man and a girl.
Yeah.
That survive.
Okay. Right. We'll be back very shortly with our thoughts on the Deer King.
In this here promo of the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast, you either live by the gun or die by the sword. I'm Nico, just one half of the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast, where my co-host Chris and I deep dive into everything good, bad, and weird the world of cinema has to offer, and some lighter reviews for movies we just felt like talking about. So if you're looking for not-so-family-friendly reviews of family-friendly movies, gore-fest with hunky men, the bottom-of-the-barrel flicks, or technically good films as determined by the cinema oligarchy, we're the right podcast for you. You can find us anywhere podcasts invade your ear holes and on social media at TGTBTW_podcast. So check us out. We have such sights to tell you about. Peace.
And we are back. Having watched The Deer King. And I'll say from the very start, this very much feels like very much borrowed from Princess Mononoke, which, you know, Studio Ghibli done in the past. and also a bit of sprinkling of wolf walkers.
Yeah, I get that.
So, I did look like, why does this feel so familiar as with Princess Mononoke? And it turns out that the directors of this film were former staff from Studio Ghibli, so they've kind of gone on their own way and let's make a film that kind of seems very similar and fits that, and just done it a bit worse.
Well, yeah, because I remember really enjoying the Princess
Mononoke.
Thank you. And its raw beautifulness of nature and everything quite simplistic, and like her being she's a seedling, isn't she? No. Okay, yeah. Yeah, no. Now that you've shown me this, I can kind of see what you mean. So I'm just looking at the front cover of the Princess Mononoke. There's a wolf, there's a deer, there's forest people. I feel like there's not as much politics though in this.
Oh,
maybe
no, there's no. No, that's what's different in this film, The Deer King, where there was a point where you were like, oh, I don't know, I'm not feeling this.
There was two parts of the film. It felt like there were two separate bits. Like when it was more Game of Thronesy but animated, and it was like all politics, all culture of like royals and armies and stuff like that. I was just like not really following the dialogue and everything as much as I'd want to. Nor was I really enjoying it. I really just enjoyed it when we had Van and how do you pronounce the little girl's name? Una.
Yeah, those two. He's like, give me more of that.
Yeah, I just want more of that. That's golden. Like, that's working really, really well, and I'm enjoying that. And I think that's what a Studio Ghibli would be like. It would be mainly more focused on the two leads, somewhat, a little bit more, and it would give you the niceness, and then the dark tones would come in at the same time. Whereas I think this is just a bit quite heavy. And you get...
Yeah, which isn't what I expected. That kind of threw me for a loop a little bit because there is some like violence in Mononoke. Like I'm getting shot off and everything. The boar thing that's kind of like the...
Yeah, we have a boar in it as well, don't we?
And in something like this, I wasn't expecting a lot of like blood. I know we had a lot of that in Akira, but...
Well, yeah, and this from the get-go, obviously the wolves near enough killed everybody in the salt mine, which we already knew coming into this.
Yeah.
And then we have the two survivors. But even then, Van's arms bleeding quite dramatically reminded me of my injury with my hedge trimmer. And I think it's just, like, already you get in this undertone of a dark element within the
Starts
film.
Off heavy.
Yeah.
So it's like, I thought it was going to be like a light romp in the woods kind of thing, like with the title. Yeah.
What's the one where there was a seedling in...
like a little girl who becomes from a seedling?
Yes.
Princess Kogagoya or something, I forget. I can't remember exactly. Yeah. But that's a different art style and everything, isn't it? I remember.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed that one, and I was thinking, with it being the Deer King and, I don't know, being more woodlandly, foresty, I just thought it'd be all more down to earth, more nature elements brought in from the title.
Yeah.
And more spiritualism within it.
Because one of the things, like I said, William brought up earlier about the Game of Thrones element, and again, I'm sorry, this is probably going to be like another one of those discussions where we can keep jumping and comparing it to other film, but obviously, like in Mononoke, where there seems to be the strong connection with Japanese culture in obviously the attire, the folklore elements to it, and all that kind of stuff. Whereas this film does feel like this could just be any animation.
It felt more
style,
British though, didn't it?
Yeah, but it just happens that we thought, we'll watch it in subbed rather than dubbed. But then I feel like, in the case of this one, it probably would have worked again to have done it in that way, that way around, because of like the like I say, it feels like more like European setting really. There wasn't anything that screamed, this is we're in Japan here.
No,
anything like that.
Apart from the names, I would say that were the only thing where the names felt Japanese, like Van and Yuna.
Yeah.
Seemed more Japanese than they would do, like, but the actual aesthetics, the country,
And-
the land, the buildings, even, we didn't really get to see them eat really that much. Whereas
No, they're
I know
just like
in
eating deer and stuff like.
in a Studio Ghibli, you would.
Yeah, like ramen or something that
Not
looks really
saying-
delicious, but
Obviously, there is an age to this film as well. There's an undertone of like it is quite medieval times.
yeah, from yesteryear type of.
Yeah, so maybe they didn't have that much food back then. Like ramen might not have been a thing, or I don't know, but I feel like it would have been. But like your buildings would have been traditional. Like you would have had shrines. You
Yeah.
would have had like traditional Japanese roofs and
Mhm.
everything like that. You know, like when you play on the PlayStation. What was
Ghost
that?
of Tsushima.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it was all kind of that aesthetics around it, then you would feel like, yes, okay.
It's the same for this, but.
And don't get me wrong, Studio Ghibli have done this where they are based in different places, and you know that. Like, you know, we've got, I forgot what it's called now. There's one that is European. It's more to do with a war, and they do, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but they do different areas. It's not always just Japanese, is it?
No, I mean, like Porco Rosso was more to do with like Italian planes and stuff like that. But
so I think that's kind of what I'm meaning. So maybe they're going, if you're saying that, maybe they were trying to do.
Yeah, maybe you're thinking of maybe you're thinking of Arrietty.
Yes,
yes,
I am. But I think because it's got the history of it within this film, and you can feel like it feels like it's an old time.
Yes.
Like there's no TVs, there's nothing, you know.
No.
It is an old kind of like
Setting.
living in a year or anything like that. And you've got your royalty, which are very heavily hitting on decisions of war and such.
Yeah, it's literally playing a game of chess.
Yeah.
To like, oh, what's our next move with this and this blight that's coming in, and it's like we want to keep this going so that we have control, like chemical warfare type of thing going on, and that this ever looming presence of this. What do they call it now?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, they call them awesome dogs, but it's black wolf fever is like this overbearing mist,
Purple stuff.
the purple mist that rolls in really to attack and consume the land almost. So it's like because it's almost like a wave almost because I almost like there's scenes where it looks like they're like underwater, like that sound.
Which is strange because like on Wolf Walkers they do it all quite nice and green and like foresty and
the lines, everything all kind of like free flowing and stuff.
Yeah. Whereas this is like showing the wolf as a dark thing. And I know obviously they're carrying disease or whatever they're saying, but it sounds like it is actually whoever is the head of the pack, which is a human. You have a wolf king.
Or dog king is.
Dog king. And it's just a bit like they're then using the wolves in a negative manner. To how they should react and what they should do and bite or hurt and I wanted to love this a lot more than I did. I feel like I invested 2 hours, but
that was another thing as well. I feel like we said like 2 hours. I'm thinking that it could have been shortened to shave off half an hour.
Definitely, for me, you could have cut all the politics out. You could just have the fact that are these wolves causing mayhem. You could have obviously Van, who is a wonderful character with Una. And you could have people wanting to be after Van for an antidote and cut the politics out, and you would probably chop it down to an hour and a half kind of film with that, and it would be more enjoyable. I think as well for me, the relationship that they have, the two, with Van and Una, gosh, she is adorably cute. It's really sweet because it's not actually his daughter, but he lost his wife and his son prior.
Yeah.
That this connection is all he's got and all he craves and wants. And she just brought light back into his life. He admits that. And I just really enjoy when they're on the screen, like the way that she's calling him Dada and always giving him food and
she's just cute little gestures that she's got like lift me up type of thing and all that kind of.
It's just adorably sweet.
Yeah.
And the way that they animate her and portray her is spot on. And Van's character is the same because he's like a noble kind of steed.
He's got like stoic figure to him and everything like that.
Yeah. And them two are like the main leads and the brilliant. But yet again, how it ends, I'm a bit like, what? You leave her again. She all she wants is a father figure. You end up leaving her with the clan that you were initially took you in and looked after you, which is fine. Yes, she knows him, but it's not the same, is it? And yeah, okay, she can blow a whistle and he can come back as a deer or deer wolf. I don't know. And I'm just like,
yeah, that bit didn't sort of like. I feel like it kind of rushed at the end a little bit with that, despite the film's length.
Yeah, I feel like they built all up for it, that he was fighting for her and he was coming back for her. But in the end, then he just left her, and I was like,
okay, yeah.
Well, what war all that for? Why did you...
It's very meandering plot in some cases. And even, like, there was a scene where they were, like, tracking Una down, because they got taken by the wolves. And there was, like, this bit in this, like, foggy swamp area, and then there's these people on stilts, stilt walker people.
There was nothing led to that, though.
Yeah, it's like, oh, why are you doing this? And they just run off, and it's like, well, whose side are they on? What clan are they from?
What
like,
are they?
Because it's never explained. It's kind of just forgotten about. I think, oh, it's going to come back later on. No, nothing. Never mind. There was just something
to add
I
in.
don't know.
That could definitely been cut out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I did nothing for me.
Which was a shame, because actually, atmospherically, the foggy, misty trees and everything they had going was great. But then it wasn't when you found out it was not really worthwhile it being there.
Yeah. I think the only thing maybe was the fact that with the tracker lady, who was called Say, I think it should reveal much later in the film what her actual name was.
Near enough towards the end, yeah.
That Van, like, saved her from within that scenario, but other than that, but I think you could have done that in some other way, or, you know, like, I don't know. I've just, like, have a heart-to-heart conversation or something, and done the exact same thing without that being there, but...
Yeah, because I think then in the end she does kind of look after the little girl, doesn't she, really?
At the end.
Yeah, she's like, becomes her mother figure.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, I just really wanted to like it, but I just feel like is it worth 2 hours? Probably not. Is it... It is beautifully drawn. Like, I can't take that away from it.
No, I actually can't. No.
And the aesthetics of, like, the snow and everything, and even the deer.
And the greenery as well, you know, like that kind of glowing effect of this magical stuff that kind of, like, is part of the cure, I guess, for this sickness that is only applicable to a certain... There's, like, 2 clans, basically, and one of them is, like, supposed to be immune to this black wolf fever, but now it's getting to a point where it's like, oh, no, it's not even they're getting affected, and that's where all this kind of politics come into it. And there was almost like a montage bit where almost like a Romeo and Juliet aspect was like, oh, 2 people from different clans because they're wearing the red and the blue, like, running away from everybody, and it's like, oh, let's jump because
we're not going to be together, so we might as well not be here.
Like, again, that's like, what? Yeah, unnecessary for that, really, and to emphasise the sort of political aspect that this film has in it.
I want to know, with Van, so was he always a deer king?
Well, they made it sound like, oh, if you've been bitten when you survive, then you're the chosen one or something. So it's like a...
But that's for the dog king, not the deer. Like...
Yeah, but do you need to be bitten by a deer to...
That's what I don't understand, because the title is the Deer King, not the Dog King.
Yeah.
So was he already a Deer King? Because he seemed to have a high authority or something at the beginning with his family, and then something happened in, like, I don't know if there was a march or, like, there was a war kind of
between
thing.
The 2 factors, and then he was from what was it, from a factor of lone antlers or something, as if, like, so maybe he was like a king at some point from that, and that's why he's called the Deer King.
I think it must be, because I know that one of the guys was telling, like, an old folk tale of this Deer King, and then he said, oh, well, maybe he just wanted to leave and kind of, so I don't know if he was saying it because he actually was or is, but had to flee for whatever reason, and he was the only one that survived. And then that's how he's kind of then lost his identity somewhat, being in the salt mine and everything, and then being freed again. And even then again with the wolves, he's like, oh, I've survived again. So it seems to be he's somewhat a chosen one, constantly surviving these
hardships,
And he is a lovely character, like, man of many limited words, I'd say. But he you show that he's quite compassionate and caring with his actions and how he is with everybody really around him who is not in politics. Is there anything that you think, right, wow, this was the most amazing bit? Like, I don't know. I think I was just really miffed off with the end.
I wasn't miffed off with the end. I was more... I felt upset because, like, I don't know if you felt the same way. Like, oh no, like, she hasn't got a dad anymore kind of thing, and I felt really touched by that for some reason. Like, I don't know why that was really like, oh my god, type of thing.
Now, I was more upset and heartbroken when the, like, army or whoever were coming to take Van away, and she's going, da 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 da, and she's running. That's when it got me.
Oh, right. But I knew, like, oh, this is going to resolve itself, don't worry. Whereas, pulls the rug under you a little bit for that last part, but as I say, I feel like it's kind of just okay, well, now I've got to sacrifice myself so she can live a better life, right, see ya. And that'd be that. Like, okay.
Yeah,
but
I guess he kind of is doing her a favour, but at the same time, it's like, well, you're not, because you're not going to be there, and that's all she wants at the moment. So, yeah, I feel like there must have been another way. Like, couldn't she be a wolf queen and have the wolves for good? Like, because he's got them now, and they're not tearing everything apart. So why couldn't he just teach her how to do that, and then they could be together?
Teach her how to do what? Sorry.
Train the wolves. Why couldn't she be the wolf god?
Because I feel like because then she'd have to be living that tree like the old man does. Oh, I don't know.
I don't know why he was in the tree.
Because he was that's why Van was supposed to be like next of kin up to take his place basically, and that's why I was like, oh, we're going to wrap up all the branches in, when you go in that wolf walker sort of scene.
I don't know why
wolves just sat around
the tree. It just don't make sense. Why can't he be part of them? And how does it work then when he's a deer and he's still got a pack of wolves behind him?
Yeah, it looks a bit sus, doesn't it? Like, why would wolves be following a deer and not be attacking?
Well, yeah. I don't know. I feel...
Yeah, a lot of ideas, but not
very coherent enough. Even though it was for 2 hours, it just felt like a bit of two different films.
Yeah, so like there was a sort of quiet-ish lull where, obviously, when they arrive at that village and they're kind of like settling in, and there's a little montage of them, obviously, as the seasons change, everything they said about the snow, and they're like, oh, Yuna's getting to grips with, like being a part of the clan, so is Van. And they're kind of laughing and joking and everything like that, and like just milking the deer they're called Puka.
I feel like that's harder to pronounce than deer, unless they're calling it something completely different.
Which, as I looking back of the box, I remember from Mononoke again, they kind of have that sort of similar deer drawing style, but it kind of makes sense if they've worked from Ghibli in the past. Then, sort of...
It's inbred in them, isn't it? It's not going to change how they draw things and how they...
Yeah, as art directions, I don't know, we want to look at it like this, but...
You even mentioned about the dark side, where they wanted to, obviously, wolves to take over. They had horses with red hair and red...
Yeah, in the Fire Horse village, which is kind of comes in a bit later on, they kind of like did like I guess sort of exposition at the beginning, where there was like a load of text that was explaining the sort of like backstory of like
each clan.
And so in that sense of thinking about it now, like, oh, if you've explained it in there, why do we need to go so deep with all the politics stuff that we're not that interested in? Really. So if you do one or the other, really. But I don't know.
I think they were trying to do something a bit different. It just didn't work that well. Because it is one of those where it feels different, but it's not in a great way, if I'm completely honest. Not saying I hated it, like, it wasn't the worst anime I've watched. I know parts I really thought were quite cherishable and enjoyable, but just as a whole, collectively, it wasn't I didn't seek the enjoyment I was promised from you.
Do you mean in terms of storyline or just visual?
Visually, it's beautiful.
Yeah, to be fair, in my head, that's what I thought it was be a big selling point for the film. It's like, oh, this looks nice, and like it would be sort of like in a set in a woods and everything like that, and kind of like, oh, happy life
there's
kind of thing.
nothing
you know,
happy
like,
about it, Paul.
But with a little bit of turmoil, not so much factor of things with people having, bleeding out or anything like that does occur. I'm like, oh, geez. Okay.
Bless you. No, I know what you're meaning.
So when you're saying a moment ago about the horses having that red and black hair colour, immediately said like, oh, let's bring Pokemon into it, don't I?
Oh,
As
yeah,
well.
always.
Oh, that looks like the colour scheme of the Pokemon Zoroark, which is like the shape-shifting fox.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also just joked about the fact that Firehorse, Rapidash.
Yeah.
so it's like they've got to make it look something realistic, as if it's the Firehorse bred. If it's called the Firehorse Village and the horses have got to be bred in that area to reflect that, then it make more sense to have it look like the mane and the, what do you call it, the bottom of the hooves?
Hooves?
The
fur? I don't know.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, just like that was also bred as well.
Yeah.
And because it would be silly if the like literally on fire, and it's like, oh, that's
It's definitely Pokemon then. It's going a step too far, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think as well with this, you've got the realisticness of politics, war, everything quite hard hitting in life, and then you've got the sublime part where it's like, oh yes, we've got dog kings and deer kings or whatever, and I just think it's like, well, you've got something that's really, really like on the nose. This is what that timepiece would have been like, and then some form of mythical. And I know back then they believed in witches and all of that, and there was a certain element to it. But I think I'd have just rather had a piece where he was the deer king, and he was...
Yeah, that was like his transformation. He actually literally became something like that and stopped the plague or the sickness through that way. And then he literally saw him. And it was the whole thing of him being like he could like be one with the earth essentially. It was inside out as well, which was an odd thing to call it. That he was sort of like manipulated nature in that way.
I feel like they could have used that a lot more within this. Like, I think they missed a trick on that and actually went too hard heavy with the more boring parts personally. I feel like it was...
Because in a way, for like a film, well, in any animation really, you push the boundaries of what you can't normally do with live action, really, other than with the special effects. But in a fantastical sense, it's like, wow, this is like, this could only work in like an anime setting specifically. Whereas because the obviously the animals particularly are sort of like somewhat grounded in reality. The wolves look like wolves. There's nothing otherworldly mysterious about them that reflects anything particularly like out there for just doesn't exist in our world. And same for the deer as well. There's nothing there that is
like, I know this, you kind of compared it to Wolfwalkers, but I feel like the Wolfwalkers has got its politics, it has got its kind of, it's the same tone and same era. It feels like it is kind of same.
But that's set in Ireland where there's the lore behind that makes more sense for that setting as well.
Yeah. And I think...
Whereas this doesn't work for... No. It feels like, again, a European story, but it just happens to be done by a Japanese animation studio. And there's only a few characters that do seem like, like the jovial, like, comic relief, as it were, for their facial expressions or how they act.
It's like, for example, if you were comparing this to Ponyo, like, I think, for me, I quite like a light-hearted anime where there's not much dialogue, really. It's so beautifully stunning that you can pretty much understand the beat of the film, and it could be a silent film. You wouldn't really need much dialogue to keep it going. Whereas I think for this, there's several parts where the dialogue was really heavy, was quite intense, but did it really give you much for the story to progress? I don't feel like it did. Like, I'd have rather had some more visual pleasing views with the Deer King and gone more on that route and just enjoyed it a lot more, sadly. And I feel really bad because I really wanted to go in, because like anime is normally one of my favourite months, and I feel like so far we've not done great with the
speak for yourself.
picks. So At least promise me there's going to be one like a Ponyo or something like that where I'm like Spirited Away. Like I know that is quite challenging and there is like some really good lessons within that and it can be a little bit wacky and out there. But at the same time, there's so much stuff that you appreciate and love and care for within the film that it brings you back to it. Whereas I think this is just like yep, I've seen The Deer King. I wouldn't highly recommend it to anybody. It's just, yep, it's...
Yeah, your mileage might vary, really, but just from a visual standpoint, and maybe the score, perhaps, that I would say those are the strongest points, but storyline, no, I can't really say there was much to go from with this.
And it just really annoyed me that Una was still on her own, like, at the end, how much she loved Van. And it was just like, come on, you just do the right thing. Just leave it where you're the Deer King, but you're still her dad. Why? I don't know why you couldn't be still her dad and that you had to bugger off and just be with the wolves.
Selfish bastards.
Exactly. And I'm just like, you built this relationship up. It's been the best bloody bit of the film. And now you're not even letting me have that. Like, yeah, okay, in the credits, they do show that she blows on a whistle and he appears as a deer. But it's just not the same, is it? You can't hug her. Why did he have to morph into a deer? Like he's been, and what made him the Deer King? There's so many questions. You've got
left unanswered, yeah, a little bit.
Loads of wolves, but I just
wrong title, I think.
Yeah,
and wrong film. I don't know.
I'm glad I've seen it. Like it would have been something I would have probably definitely looked at and thought I'd been interested in watching.
Yeah. But as I said before, like there's a sort of my worry with it's a almost 50-50 chance of like whether it's going to be a strong contender for like, oh yeah, this is like a modern classic type of thing. But I don't think this is unfortunately going to fall in that category because it's like, was it the Don Glees or whatever it was, that other one we covered with like the
Were they the Four Boys?
Yeah, oh, and the woods, a bit like Stand By Me, whatever anime, but and that didn't stand out as a very good film either.
Neither did Stand By Me, but for me, but you know.
Right, okay, well, I think we've sort of given what we think as a general whole, but what the scores are is got to put it into a number.
And it's you to go first because you've never seen it.
So I don't want to really slag off too much, or anymore, like in the sense of like, well, oh, this was like the worst thing I've ever seen.
No, it's not the worst thing.
There's some merits, but I think it's probably most of it's coming from just the visual side of things.
Yeah.
So I will put it at 6.
I agree. That's what literally I was thinking in my head. I was like, a 6 seems reasonable.
Yeah,
I know I scored Akira, yeah, quite lowly, and I know you were pretty gutted. But this is more, for me, aesthetically pleasing to the eye.
Mm-hmm. I
do really like nature, I like gardening, I like all of that aspect, and there was some...
cute little girl.
Yeah, yeah, that did help. So I feel like I can't underscore it for that. I think it's just the storyline that just brings it down a little bit for me, which... It's a shame because it could be a really, really good film if the storyline was just a little bit more coherent and less politics. But obviously,
less of a runtime, more tightly focused
on the Deer King.
Yeah, on that aspect of it, and just not feel like it's borrowed from other films, which isn't. It's no real fault of their own, I guess, but sometimes it just seems like painfully obvious, like what it's going for. And try and make a different spin on it, but the cracks show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Sadly.
There we are. Next time, it's going to be another one that you haven't seen, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Or maybe one that we have both seen and we haven't covered. Maybe. We'll have a think on that.
Well, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. Because as we've got 5 spots...
Oh, yes, we could spice it up and then do...
exactly, and then go back to normal format, and I think that might be the best option.
You might get a high scorer then.
Yeah, it'd be like, very presently, we both know what we're going in for, and then like a review of it. Yeah, our thoughts after, Thank you very much for listening to this episode, and if you would like to check out some of our other episodes, you can do so by going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever else you get your podcasts from. And as always, be sure to leave us a 5-star review over on those podcast platforms as well. That'd be very much appreciated.
And if you want to have more SP in your life, then you can follow us on social media under the handle SP_filmviewers on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and X.
Also like to thank the patrons, of course.
So, first of all, I want to thank... It felt like a presentation award then. First of all, let's go with my mum. She's been a patron for a long time now. And then we've got Jonesy, who's under the handle Weight Loss Jonesy on Instagram, as well as his partner Emma, who's under the handle M_Hayton. We've also then got Gren, who's on Instagram as well under CGren_draw.
We've got Alex, who is at Desperately Seeking Username, and his wife Shani, who is at SDOG on Instagram. And lastly, we've got the podcast collective of ours, who are Mark from 100 Things We Learned from Film, Nico from the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast, and Ben from Push Pull Health, and formerly Film Vloggers. So, big thank you to those people who've kindly donated £1 or $1.50 a month to have their name read out and have the opportunity to vote for a movie we watch once a month. But in this case, it'll be an extra one.
So if you do want to be a Patreon and be able to vote again for anime, obviously you've missed the first one now, but then you can. So you can follow us and become a Patreon at patreon.com/SPFilmViewers.
Yep, you can get all those lovely little perks, and obviously it helps us grow the community and
build a little family.
Yeah.
So next time, hopefully, fingers crossed, Paul, come on.
Pull your finger out.
Yeah, you can do better. Anime shouldn't be so low scores. It's not Halloween.
I didn't give
Well,
first one a low
I
score,
mean
so-
in me. You don't give low scores in Halloween. That's why I'm saying it.
So thank you very much for listening once again, and we'll speak to you next time.
Speak to you next time.
Bye.
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 Bye.